All right, we're live. Hello, friends. And let me get this screen shared. Okay. Hi. So this is Office Hours. Every Monday and Thursday, I just have an hour of time to answer people's questions. And I answer the questions of people in the Zoom chat first. And you can find that link at kcd.im/office hours. And yeah, we're doing the Monday for today. So yeah, let's see. I answer the questions of people who are in the Zoom call first, and then if we run out of those questions, which we often do, people just like to hang out here, which is awesome. Then I go to the Discord, and if we run out of questions there, that's never happened. It's almost happened a couple times, but it's never actually happened. So I just end it early, I guess, if that were to happen. So I guess it has kind of happened like in the last few minutes. So anyway, yeah, I guess that's everything that I want to say. We do have a couple questions in Discord as of right now, so I've got those to answer. But before I jump into those, any questions from folks here in Zoom? Okie dokie. Then I'll just jump into our chat. Okay, so Peter is in the call. Hey there, Peter, and asked a question about the memory leak exercise. So here I specifically say memory leak. Oh, actually, I don't say it, but the React warning does. So Peter, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was asking about the warning itself. So not about your code, but like what is the memory leak that React refers to?
Yeah. So basically in your question, you have some thoughts that you give, and your intuition is correct. And I think somewhere in here you said hopefully the answer is more than just React cannot distinguish genuine memory leaks from false positives here. Unfortunately, that is what it is. So in our case, I wouldn't say that we're just silencing the warning. No, we kind of are in this particular situation, but I wanted to show the reason that I included it isn't just to show you how to silence the warning, but to show you how to deal with this type of problem so that depending on the specific situation, you know how to clean things up. So a couple of situations where not cleaning up can lead to a memory leak. I'm sure you know, but for the benefit of everyone else, like if you use a third-party library that sets up a bunch of event handlers and you don't clean those up, then those DOM nodes are going to hang around. So you mount a bunch of those and unmount them. Eventually, you're going to have a bunch of DOM nodes that exist in memory that aren't actually needed or used on the page. Also, like another situation would be a set interval that you don't clean up properly. That can be catastrophic depending on how frequently that interval runs and how many variables are in scope of that closure, and how many times you mount that thing, and if it's performing any side effects, that could be really bad. So the warning is just there to say, hey, like something bad could be happening here. Let's get that fixed.
Yeah, the thing is that the use safe dispatch doesn't actually clean anything.
Yes, that's right. So that's what I was saying. In this example, we are kind of just silencing the warning. And for our situation, it's fine. So like if you wanted to, in fact, in the videos, I believe I say, if you want to take it a step further, you could cancel the request, which would be better. So for us, here, let's get this up so we all have some context on what we're even talking about here. This is exercise 2. And so we'll go before we solve this problem. I'll pull up the dev tools and I'll click this, and then I'll unmount the component. And then when that request finishes, then, oh, did I fix that? Hold on. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong iframe or the wrong JavaScript execution context. So here, let's just do it on the isolated page. That's easier. We unmount it and we should get a warning, but we're not. What's happening? I don't know. well, we should be getting a warning. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong. Let's just do the exercise here. Actually, the exercise doesn't even implement it, I think. No, it does. Okay, so if we go Charizard and then unmount. Huh. Okay, something's wrong. I need to look at this exercise, but we should be seeing a warning here when the component is unmounted. Sorry, Peter, did you have something to add?
No, I remember the warning. I'm not sure why it's not here.
Yeah, it's all right. I actually, Peter, I know that you understand all this stuff. I'm mostly answering this now for the benefit of others watching. But anyway, so you get this warning. I need to figure out why it's not showing up here. And it's saying exactly this: can't perform a React state update on an unmounted component. So what's happening is we're making a request, and then we unmount the component that cares about the request. And so when that request finishes, we're trying to update state on a component that doesn't exist anymore. And so React is like, hey, this is a sign of some sort of memory leak because you set state on a thing that doesn't exist. And so this could happen for a variety of reasons, and React has no way of knowing what that reason is. And so this is why I say, like, if it's in a set interval or something and you just like constantly are setting state, then that would be bad. Not because you're setting state, because it doesn't do anything, like who cares? The problem is that that block of code that's being executed is doing nothing useful, and it's consuming memory resources, and that's why they have the warning. So anyway, for our specific situation, the only what would be better, and what I mentioned in the videos as like an extra thing if you wanted to work on it, what would be better is to actually cancel the request that's being made, so that you have an additional optimization here. So like I said, for us, it's not really doing anything. We're just silencing the warning, saying that we don't call the state updater when the component's not been mounted. But that's not really getting us any optimizations or anything. It's just quieting the warning. So if you wanted to optimize it further, then canceling the request could do that, because the difference between what we have now and canceling the request is, with the request still in flight, that request body and everything is going to be downloaded when the server sends it back. It'll be downloaded, it'll be parsed. If it's JSON, it'll be parsed into JSON. And that could be potentially problematic depending on how much data it is and how much JSON it is. And so you can just have the browser say, you know, I don't care about that thing anymore. And that's what the abort controller thing is all about. I've got a gist somewhere where I gave kind of an example of something like this. I don't know if I'll be able to find this though. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know where that is, but anyway, it's you could optimize this further by canceling the request so it doesn't actually download, and you just use a abort controller to do that. So does that sort of answer your question? I know it's probably not very satisfactory, but that's what it is.
It's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's come back here to office hours. And we've got a question from Yash or Yash. I'm not sure how to say this name, but I try. Yes, I remember this question was asked in the performance module. We're talking about the context module functions. Let's just get there. React performance. This is exercise 1, I believe. Nope, it is. Oh, maybe this is. No, this is patterns. That's right. It's a pattern for improved performance. Okay, so in here we've got this simple form where you can submit some data, and it has built-in some optimistic updates and stuff. If you have fail in here, then we can see that recovery happen. So you can see the tagline gets updated. but then it gets sent back. So that's built in. That's what the example is about. So there's a couple of things that happen when you click on this submit button, and that is what we're trying to encapsulate in this exercise. So one of the things that I mention in this exercise is it helps improve performance. So I'm not showing you the actual pattern. You can take a look at that later in the implementation. This is just the problem that we solve with the pattern. But the pattern helps improve performance and helps you avoid mistakes. Excuse me. And the question is, let me just read it to myself really quick. Yeah, okay. So I think I would need to see what the alternative solution really looks like. So I know, and I've done this, the alternative solution myself. I think it might make more sense if we look at some code. So let me go to advanced React patterns and 1JS in final. So the solution is to create this utility update user that accepts dispatch and then everything else. And then it you just import it rather than like pulling it from a use context hook or whatever. You just import it. You get that user dispatch from context because you need that to be able to call these dispatch calls and whatever. So yeah, you import that and then you call it in your event handler, or you could put it inside of a use effect and call it there. With this being a module level function, you wouldn't need that to be in a dependency list at all, which is kind of nice. The only thing that you would need to put in a dependency list is the user dispatch thing, which is also, that works that because it's a stable function, thanks to it being a dispatch function. So that's fine. So the assertion is that there's not a whole lot of benefit to having this update user be a module level function, because I could just put it in context. I can memoize it. I can call React use callback in here and make sure that it has all the dependencies listed and everything. And you know, I kind of want to pull this up and type something. So let me just do that really quick, just so we can really compare these two. Let me make sure I've got all everything up to date. Okay. And yeah, we're right here. This is it. So the alternative here would be we'd have our update user, React use callback. Whoop. And we put all this stuff in there. This will be async. And we'll provide our whatever thing. And that's weird. Why does that need to be? Oh, because we're gonna need to call or grab user and updates. There we go. Okay. And then we'd put this in our context value. So presumably you'd probably change this to an object and have update user. And that would work here. Let's just finish this. So now we've got, it's called state, right? So state will destructure these things off of state and then have update user. And there we go. And there we go. Okay, so that actually should probably work right there. So why would you go with one way or the other? Well, first of all, I would actually probably start with this way. And in fact, in the Bookshelf app, that is what I do. I have the login and register and logout functions are all put into context. We use React.useCallback for those. And so if if I'm using them, then why am I teaching you to do this? So there are a couple of benefits to this approach. And like I said, it's an idea that I got from Dan, and he explained it pretty well, saying right here, passing raw dispatch down also makes code splitting such async methods easier. So you can import them from a leaf component that uses them instead of the root component. So you only pay for what you use where you use it. I think that's probably the biggest benefit, is the code splitability. And sometimes the amount of logic that you have around these dispatch functions is of significant size that code splitting is useful. And so like the fact is that we're putting this update user module function within the same module that our context is in, but it doesn't have to be that way. You could have a leaf node somewhere on like the settings page that has some special logic that it's going to do with this with the dispatch function. And so you could put that with the settings page and not have to worry about codes like having that in the context provider function. So that's the biggest benefit to this pattern. And I think in here, dev tools, nope. So there, let's find it together really quick. So in the React dev tools, they actually implement this pattern. So if you want to see like a real world scenario where this is implemented, then yeah, React dev tools would be a place to find it. That is not correct. Okay, it's in the Facebook repo. Facebook, React. No, React. What? GitHub. For goodness sake. Okay, so we go to packages, dev tools, probably in core. I think they've moved things around since I last checked this, so it may take a second to find this. Yeah, I kind of don't think that I'll find it. Yeah, it may not be in core. Yeah, they totally moved it around. Shared. Yeah, I won't be able to find it. You'll find it though. If you look hard enough, you'll find it, because I remember when Dan and I were talking about this, I think he may have shared a link actually. Oh wait, no, there, maybe this was it. Here's an example. And here we can look at the view file. Well, anyway, so we get the dispatch there. And no, man, I can't remember where it was. And I don't want to look. So I'll just share this with you, and you can dive through that a little bit to get an idea of how this works in a real world setting. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of tired right now. So I don't have as much patience with myself as I normally do. Okay, so let's talk about this next question. About extra credit too on suspense image. Oh, right. Yeah. So I saw this question just like 15 minutes ago or 10 minutes before we started. And I didn't dive too much into it because I suggested that we just do it here. So let's figure out what's going on in here. So we're on suspense image, extra credit 2. And here we have render as you fetch. Sorry. Now that we're preloading the image along with data, the improvements will be more pronounced. Go ahead and put this at the top of your file. Make that work, then check the net, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's open this on an isolated page. Let's take a look at the network tab right here. Clear all this out, and we'll choose Pikachu. Okay, so, oh, that's interesting. That purple color is new. Why? It has a little chevron there, and I'm clicking on it, but it's not doing anything. That is Surprising. Okay, anyway, it looks like they added a new color for service worker stuff, which is kind of makes things interesting. Anyway, we've got all of this stuff is pushed over to the left. Now, what we're going to compare this against is before we do all of the optimizations that we do in these exercises, starting with exercise 2. I'm going to pop this one open. And we'll clear this out and we'll go Pikachu again. And you'll notice that we've got a couple of things pushed over to the left. So we actually kind of behind the scenes, I have an optimization for the fallback Pokemon. Well, no, I don't think that is applying here. In any case, as soon as we click on it, it is going to load the fallback Pokemon so that it can render that. In fact, you can even watch that happen by here. No, we don't want to disable the cache. We'll just do empty cache and hard reload. And then if I go to a slow 3G connection, then you can watch right here. We don't have that image because it doesn't show up for a second. And in fact, it never shows up because by the time the fallback Pokemon image finally loads, we've already loaded all of the data necessary and we can go get the Pikachu image itself. If we click on it now, the fallback Pokemon image should come right from the cache. So that's odd that it's still not showing. But we don't have this problem with the optimizations that we do through the course of this workshop. So anyway, the point is, and most of what we do in the suspense workshop is optimizing the loading of things. Suspense and concurrent mode do more, but it's those things are supposed to just happen automatically for you, assuming that you're following all the recommended, don't mutate it, ref during render and stuff like that. Then all of the cool benefits of concurrent mode should just happen for you. And we're just, in this workshop, we're focusing on how can we take advantage of the new features that React Suspense with concurrent mode will give us. And that mostly has to do with loading data and code and assets and stuff. So anyway, all of that said, oh my goodness, a bunch of stuff has been going on. So with all that said, when I clicked on this button, we've got everything pushed over to the left. So we're trying to load things as soon as we have the information for them. So comparing this to this time we clicked on here, first we were loading the fallback Pokemon. We actually don't, oh, right. Yeah, adding the fallback Pokemon preloading, I think happens later. But anyway, that happens immediately, but it doesn't even matter because we start loading Pikachu right from the get-go, like right when we start, right when we click on this link. Whereas in the before version, much before, we can't load Pikachu until we've finished loading the data. And that's the optimization that we're doing in this exercise. Here, let me make sure that I'm, that's like part of the exercise. Oh, right, yeah. So that in the whole exercise, the optimization is, hey, you know all the stuff you need to know to go get the image asset. And so just go and get that right away rather than waiting until you get all the data. Because the data technically has the URL for the image, but we have, once we know which Pokemon we're trying to load, we can also load the image. So we just get that started sooner. That, whoops, I just cleared it by accident. That's what we're trying to do in here. So for the extra credit though, I'm trying to demonstrate how, because of the way that we've made changes to the way we're structuring things, and we can start loading all of this data as well as the code as soon as our selection is chosen. And maybe it could have been demonstrated better, but think about it this way. Yeah, and actually it absolutely could be demonstrated better, because what I do is I show you, okay, let's, as soon as the user clicks the button, let's go preload everything. And then I say, okay, now let's have the code not be even loaded yet. And it basically is pretty much the same thing. We just now are asynchronously getting the code. But if we were to say, let's take this before we optimize stuff, and then lazily load the code first, then you would notice a much bigger difference. And I try to demonstrate that in the 02 with some of the examples that we show. But basically what happens is if you put all of your data requirements and assets requirements within a lazily loaded component, then you have to go get that component's code, and then you have to execute it, run it. And then that component is going to render some other things that are going to suspend. And so then it's going to say, oh, okay, well, now let me go get this. You end up with this waterfall effect that says, okay, let me go get the code. I've got the code now. Let me go get the data. I've got the data now. Let me go get the image, and I've got the image now, and I can render that. So that's the waterfall that we're talking about. Whereas because we've done all of this work up front, as soon as the button is clicked, we can now lazy load this Pokemon info component and not worry about that waterfall happening. So we say, okay, I click on this button, I'm going to go get the data, I'm going to go get the image, and I'm going to go get the code for the thing that I am trying to render. That's what we're trying to demonstrate here. Hopefully that answers your question. And then there was another question. Can we postpone the rendering fetching of an individual Pokemon up until they click on one of the buttons to load? I'm not sure I understand the question. That's literally what's happening. We don't actually fetch anything until they've clicked on this. So yeah, I'm not sure I understand that one. Sorry. Yeah, and actually this is, yeah, see, then we get the image right away and waits till the image. That's what the exercise is about. Okay. Yeah, so it's not about, so it is a little bit about, I should mention also, code splitting in general is about speeding up the initial load, as you're suggesting here, Connor, because you don't have to load all of that code necessary to display the Pokemon info until the user actually wants to get it, wants to display a Pokemon. But once you've displayed one, you've already got all of that code, so you don't need to worry about loading the code, and now you're just preloading the assets for that Pokemon. And now these are cached, and it's awesome. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I don't think I totally understand your last question here. Can we postpone the rendering fetching of an individual Pokemon up until they click one of the buttons to load one? Yes, that's the default behavior of what we're doing. We don't actually request anything until we know which Pokemon they want to display. Okay. I have an error when using React Testing Library. Yeah, it looks like document is null. I'm not sure why that's happening. It looks like it's happening in one of your node modules though. Oh wait, yeah, in React DOM. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. With just that, it looks like it should be working. So if you can make a reproduction of what you're experiencing, then we can help. Okay, so it looks like, oh, did I miss? Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know. My eyes just glazed over it. Sorry about that. Okay, implications of mutating DOM, DOM element via element ref or query selector. Yeah, okay. So the implications of mutating a DOM node. So first of all, this is a side effect, so you'll want to do it inside of a use effect. And if you do it inside of a use effect, and you may want to do it in a use layout effect, and I've got a blog post about this, which you may have already read, but for the benefit of everyone, I've got, oh man, it's this one. Copy. Where's the copy? There we go. Yes. So use layout effect just compares those two. So yeah, you'll only want to do it in one of those. The Yeah, and actually the implications are relevant to that. So if you use a regular use effect, then React could update the DOM. The browser will paint some visual update, and then if you make a mutation that is observable, so like some visually observable, then the user will see a flash of what it was before, and then they'll see the update. So you'll want to use layout effect if you're going to be making a visual change to the DOM. The other thing is that as React goes to make updates to the DOM, I don't think that there's any situation where it would be like a huge deal. Basically, what the normal way to do this would be render what React can render, and then make changes to what React rendered in your use effect callback. And normally that is basically like render a div and then you make changes to the div. And so every time React doesn't need to bother changing the div because they have the virtual DOM representation. And as far as they know, the actual DOM hasn't changed. They don't know that the DOM has changed at all. So they so long as you don't make a change it from a div to a span or something, then there won't be any actual like React isn't going to try and take your changes and undo them or anything. It doesn't do that. It'll just say, oh, nothing changed about this thing. Now, if you do change it from a div to a span, or if you try to, like, let's say you have React control the class name, but then your use effect is changing the class name, then React is going to undo your changes, not because it says, oh, these are different than what I have in my record. It doesn't even know what the current state is. It just updates it. And so it may undo your changes. So you don't want to have React do some of the same thing that your DOM mutation is going to do, because you could wind up in some weird situations there. So where was I? So yeah, the other implications, like anytime you're dealing with the DOM directly, you have to worry about how you're managing that state and making sure that the DOM is like what it should be. So for example, let's say that you have some variable outside of React that you're using to update the DOM. You need to have some mechanism to make sure that you update the DOM whenever that state variable changes. If it's not inside of React, then it's not going to run your use effect, and so your DOM could get out of date. This is one of the reasons we like React for managing that, because we just say, hey, React, here's some state. Whenever I change this, re-render and update the DOM for me. So if you step outside of React, then you have to make sure that you manage that yourself. Now you could put that state in React, and your re-render does nothing to the JSX that you return, but your use effect keeps things updated. It's just another thing to keep in mind. Let's see. Yeah, and then the question of why avoid using query selectors in React. There's not really a huge reason necessarily, other than when with a ref, you're scoped to wherever that ref is put on. Like exactly where this is, where this DOM node is, because React is going to say, hey, I created this DOM node, let me give it to you now. It's not really the element might not even exist yet, unless you're doing some conditional rendering or something. As long as you are using a side effect, a use effect, or use layout effect to run your side effect code, then those elements will exist, and so you can query them, and it should work just fine. The only situation where that wouldn't be the case is if you're conditionally rendering these things. But if you're doing that, you'll have the same problem with a ref as well. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind about using a query selector is that it's scoped to the document unless you have a ref on the root of your component, in which case then you could say ref.query selector. But I don't know why you would do that. Like if you're happy just using a ref, why don't you just put a ref anyway? Unless you're rendering like a list of things, in which case there are various strategies to have a ref that's like an array of all of those DOM nodes and stuff. It's kind of interesting. So basically, there are a couple ways to do this, but one way that you could try for something like that is for the ref on the thing that you're iterating over. So let's say you have a UL and then you iterate over an array and you render a bunch of LIs. On that LI, you say a ref is a function, and then in that function, you're going to get the DOM node, and you can say, my refs dot push DOM node. But then the trick there is when things get removed, then you need to clean those things up. And I haven't actually ever done this before, but I'm pretty sure there's a mechanism to clean those things up. I know that this is a solved problem. Lots of people have done this. I've just never run into it myself. So anyway, yeah, I would avoid using query selectors, except for something like that. Like another solution for that same problem is you could render your UL, have a ref on that, and then a bunch of LIs. And then in your use effects, you can just say, ul.current query selector all, and then get all the LIs under the UL. That would be a really easy way to just always have the latest version of those LIs. So anyway, I'm not sure what your specific use case is there. Let me just take a look at the follow-up comments here. Right. Yep, exactly. So you never want to do side effects in your render, or sorry, this is old class talk, in your function body. You never want to do side effects in there for that reason and for many others, especially when concurrent mode. If that ever happens, then that would be a very bad thing. Very hard bug to identify. Okay, Nick. Can we use React testing libraries find by text to find a form input by the initial value or default value of that input? So yes, you can, not find by text, but anytime you're like, hey, how do I find this thing in my HTML output? Here's what you do. You go to testingplayground.com, you paste in the HTML output, and like you're probably using JSX, right? So you're like, well, how do I paste in HTML? I just have JSX. Well, you just grab here, you say, oh, I want to select in this thing. And then you right click on the element in the elements panel and copy element, and you paste it in there. And now you have it. It's not styled like you have it, but who cares? You're not, looking for styles or anything. And so then you click on the thing and you say, hey, I want to get this input. And now you can see, oh, it's going to tell me I should get by role text box with the name Pokemon name. Oh, okay, because it's labeled Pokemon name. That makes sense. There also is display value, which is probably closer to what you were trying to do with, and so we could say get by display value Pikachu, but it's not recommended. There's a better selector, and that's what it suggests here. And this is why I say go to Testing Playground to do this, because it will teach you the best selector to use. And the reason that get by role is better here is because just because something has a display value doesn't mean that it also is going to be accessible to screen readers. So you want it to be accessible to screen readers. So anyway, use Testing Playground. Anytime you're like, how do I get this thing? Oh, I already pasted that. So hopefully that helps, Nick. Horacio, what are your thoughts on changing? Yeah, so memory router is the recommended way to go by pretty much everyone, including myself, up until like 6 months ago. And then I started changing things completely. So yeah, I prefer using the browser router. It is honestly, memory router it worked okay, but I always felt kind of uncomfortable that my tests were going through a different branch of code than my my production stuff, and I like to minimize the amount of time that I'm doing that as much as possible. So here, actually, it's app test utils right in here. Is where I have my app test utils, and I use window history push state to go to a particular page, and then I render my UI with the app providers, which is using the regular router. This is the browser router, and that works out really well for me. I'm really happy with that, and that's what I recommend now. On testingjavascript.com, we're really soon going to release a couple update videos that says here are a couple of the changes that are of recommendations and things, and the code has been updated likewise. So you can find in testingjavascript.com, I also recommend browser router over memory router. I pretty much don't use memory router at all now. I know that the React Router folks use memory router just for their demos and stuff, like in-browser demos. And that's the only real situation where I could see that being useful. I suppose maybe they also use it for the server. I'm not sure what they do for server routing. Yeah, that's not my domain, but yeah, I don't have any uses for memory router myself. Yes, you can, James. Absolutely. Feel free to share your screen. I'm guessing you're in the call right now. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Can I share my screen?
Go ahead. I can see it.
Okay. This is the countdown component, which is in your testing course. And here's the test of, this is the test of, which is trying to assert that countdown component successfully clears the interval when unmounted. Write this. And so if we comment this out, there will be an error because it is trying to set state though the component is unmounted. But if I use run all timers instead of run only pending timers, I quite cannot understand what the error message means. Run 10,000 timers.
Yeah, so here's the I can explain what's going on. What's happening when you say run all timers is Jest is going to say, okay, let's say, well, here, let's back up. So when you create a timer, like a set timeout, set or set interval, that's and you have fake timers installed, then Jest actually just keeps a record of all of those. And when you say run only pending timers, it's going to look at its current record and it's going to run all of the callbacks for all of those. And it'll advance the clock as much as it needs to just for those. So then, and then it stops for the timers that were in its record for all of those at that point in time. However, if you say run all timers, then what that's going to do is it's going to take all of the timers that are in the record, and then it will run those. But then if any additional timers are added to the record, then it will run those as well. And it will continue to do that until there are no more timers left. And so that's what's happening here is you have a set interval that doesn't have a time. And so that's literally every tick of the event loop. And so it's going to run the timers and then it's going to say, oh, another timer was added to my registration of timers. So let me run that one. And then let me run that one. And it keeps on going until it runs, looks like 100,000 timers. And it says, yeah, we probably are not in a good spot. So I'm just going to stop. I'm going to throw an error, say 100,000 timers is probably not intended here. So that's what the error is saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I wonder if I change this one to 1,000 and there will be no. Oh.
Yeah. So what's happening is just
sorry.
So when you set interval, it doesn't. When you set interval with 0 as the time or no time specified, then that doesn't mean every 1 millisecond. That's just every tick of the event loop. And in particular, when you're doing fake timers, it actually is not asynchronous either. So it's running synchronously. So there's no way that you can really make, even if you had remaining time down to 1, it probably still would go infinite because it runs so quickly.
So you recommend to use run only pending timers with the set interval?
For this particular use case, yeah. There aren't a whole lot of use cases where you have an interval that happens so fast like this. In fact, even for a countdown, it's probably better. I've since learned in the last year or two, it's better to use, what is it? Request animation frame, so that your interval doesn't lock up the UI. So that's what I would switch to. And Yeah, and there really aren't too many situations where you need to have the UI updated every like nanosecond or anything. So you don't necessarily need it to, like I don't run into this problem very often because you don't have use cases like this very often. But yeah, for this particular situation, I would not say run all timers. And in fact, I don't think I use run all timers very often. I pretty much most of the time use run only pending timers most of the time. I can't think of a situation where I've used run all timers. Yeah,
Oh, I got the idea.
Yeah, I think this could even happen. In fact, why don't you on line 15, why don't you add like 50 as the second argument there on line 15 in your countdown.js. And you can leave that 16 commented out, but I'm curious to see what happens. No, sorry, on line 15 as the second argument to your set interval call, one line up.
Okay.
Yeah. So add like 50 or something. No, it's not going to be a dependency array. This is set interval. So it'll be a number. So remove the array and just
50?
put the number 50. No array.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So I think you may still have the same problem, even if you set this to like a very large number. Oh, maybe not. Yeah. Looks like it managed to pass, but it's, yeah, I'm curious. Could you add a console log to that interval callback on like line 8 or something at the beginning of the interval, just so we can see how many times this is called?
I already checked how many times the set interval is called with the use react.useRef. Oh, sorry, this is testing environment, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Huh, that's weird.
Oh, I checked in the browser console, and
yeah, it'll be
if I
different because
this
we're
says
using
state
fake timers in the test. Yeah, so I'm not sure, but my intuition here is saying that this function is getting called a lot because of run all timers, but we end up exiting this because we run out of the countdown. So that's probably what's going on. Anyway, we don't need to dive any deeper into this. Basically, I don't very often use run all timers. In fact, I don't think I've ever had a real use case of run all timers. I pretty much only use run only pending timers, or sometimes I'll say advanced timers by time as well. I use that sometimes as well. Does that help answer your question?
Thanks for your answer.
Yeah.
Actually, I have another question.
Sure.
This is a similar question with Horatio, the question before. And I've used to use a memory router instead of the browser router. And I found the memory router doesn't work with the testing the React router. And I tried to mock the history.push and just log the history.push.mock the calls, and it was called with this a slash about with successfully, but I don't know why the 404 appears.
Yeah, because you're mocking it, that means the underlying implementation isn't getting called, I'm guessing. So you might use spy-on, just.spy-on, and that will allow you to both mock it and allow the underlying implementation to be called as well. But I don't recommend doing this. It doesn't really matter unless I guess, yeah, it doesn't matter how the history gets updated. You don't care if it's history push or whatever. Like all you care about is like what you would want to assert is what the URL is at a given time. So you can assert on window.history or window.location. And then you also care about what's displayed on the page. So I wouldn't bother mocking history.push. I would just, anytime that you would want to assert that history push was called properly, instead just assert the window location is correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But the reason why I mock the history.push is because memory router doesn't work.
Right, but you don't
So
need
I
to
just
mock
check that if
history.push.
history is called properly. Oh, that's right. I just wonder. Why this isn't working?
Why this is not working? It definitely was working on September 6, 2019 when this was committed. So I haven't looked into that. I did change it recently, so I think you noticed that on master. I updated this to use the regular router. But I can dive into it really quick. Let's see, which repo is this? React testing course. Yeah, so I do change it, but let's just for the fun of it, React testing library course. And I will share my screen again. And I'm going to need to install all the dependencies over. So this was in, which one is it? Which exercise was that, James?
It was React Router 1.
Okay, cool. And so this test was not passing for you?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well, install is almost finished.
And I just wanted to figure out why this was not working, so I just mocked the history, but that wasn't the proper way to test.
Yeah, so it's passing for me, so I'm not sure why it's not working for you. But again, this isn't what I recommend going forward anyway, which is why the update to testing JavaScript is coming soon to explain the difference between this and what we have in master now. So, I mean, if you want, feel free to continue to dive in, but I am leaving the memory router and memory history in the dust behind me, and I'm moving forward with a regular browser router. Okay, cool.
Okay, the memory router doesn't work with my environment, but I don't know the reason, so I will use browser router instead.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't spend too much time trying to figure it out because it's not what you're gonna want to do going forward anyway. So, okay, cool. Somebody asking how to join the Zoom calls. They are right. All that info is right here. I just realized that I forgot to notify the people who wanted to be notified about office hours. So sorry if that's you and you missed it because I forgot. Sorry. Okay, and Christian, get some feedback on create edit modal. Here, actually, I'll just grab this so we can get some syntax highlighting, and we'll put this in here. Okay, so looks like there we need that. And that we've got a couple of syntax errors. So there's some feedback for you, but that's okay. We all make them. And just getting rid of all these red lines. Anyway, so we've got a modal form, use modal form, state reducer pattern here. Oh, that's interesting. I don't think that this is the state reducer pattern. State reducer pattern allows you to pass your own reducer, and that I don't think is what is happening here, unless form type is that, but I doubt that. Yeah, form type is not what that is, but that's okay. You have a some special hook that uses use reducer, I'm guessing. As long as the component mounts and unmounts from is open on modal initial state will be correct. Okay. So I don't think that I'm seeing enough of the implementation here to be able to provide a lot of feedback, but one thing that I'm seeing here is this form type. That I don't typically recommend that sort of an API, because that basically means put a bunch of if statements in here. So what I would say instead is just make a copy of this, have two copies of the modal form, one that is the edit form and one is that that's the create form, create modal form. And there may be a little duplication. Perhaps you can extract some of that duplication into separate components or hooks, but I don't. I've never seen a like type API that really made the implementation or the usage any easier. It, yeah, always would be more complicated. Oh, it looks like what this actually was intended to be was, I don't know what that is, but anyway, yeah, form type, I wouldn't recommend. Modal body and footer. Yeah, so I'm guessing you're using compound components here. This looks a lot like the modal that we implement in the Bookshelf app, which is great. That's fine. And so, yeah, I'm seeing some maybe compound components going on here. We've got a submit and cancel here that, yeah, let's see. Yeah, I don't know if I'm seeing enough of the implementation to really provide too much more feedback. So, but looks cool. What do you mean earlier when you said that even though text is on the screen, it might not be accessible by, yeah. So here's, so what I said is, let me just pull this open again. So here if we click on this, it's going to say get by role, text box, email address. If I remove this, or sorry, let's say hello@gmail.com. Okay, so now I can get this by its display value. So if that's how I get it, oh, it got messed up. How did that happen? Okay, and get by. Oh, it got cleared out. That's annoying. Here, let's do default value hello@gmail.com. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now if I say here and I say display value instead. So if this is how I'm testing, then somebody could come along and they could say, oh, no label for this. And now even worse, potentially, they could just say, oh, this label is no longer associated, or maybe I make a typo on this. And so now these aren't, the label isn't associated to the input. So the reason why this is potentially worse is because we don't know that there's a problem. But there is a problem because screen readers and the browser will not associate this label to this input. And so that can make the experience for people using screen readers worse. So that's what I meant by that. The text is still there and it's accessible. The screen reader will read this, and a user using a screen reader will probably just be able to infer that it read email address and then I have an input. I'm guessing that's the email address input. But that screen reader user is going to be like, oh, you're one of those guys who doesn't care about accessibility. So you don't want to be one of those guys. You want to make it as accessible as possible. And so, yeah, that's what I meant by that. Hopefully that is helpful. Okay. Form type. Oh, sweet. Good stuff. Okay. Thanks everybody for hanging out. This was fun. So next office hours is on Thursday at 4. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more upbeat and like happy. I don't know why, but I'm feeling not upbeat or happy right now. I think I'm just tired or something. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see you on Thursday. And
isn't that Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, you're right. Thursday's canceled. Thank you. So the 26th, it is canceled. We'll see you on Monday. So a week from today. So you can queue up all your questions if you'd like, and enjoy the turkey or whatever it is that you eat on Thanksgiving. Or if you're in a country not in the United States, then you can do something else. But I won't be here. So, okay.